I found out my fiance possibly gave a stripper a handjob at her bachelorette party. That's what I'm dealing with right now. My name is Mike, I'm 26, and Jane is 27. We've been together for 3 years and engaged for 6 months. The rule was clear from the start: any sex or romantic kissing outside the relationship was a deal breaker. No exceptions. I thought we were solid. We had the same values, same friends, same plans for the future. Wedding was set for next spring. Deposits were already going out. I had no idea any of that was about to blow up. It started with a phone call. I was at home playing World of Warcraft Classic with some buddies for my so-called bachelor party. Nothing wild, just pizza and raids. It was a good day. Around 10 p.m. my phone buzzed. It was a guy I knew, the husband of one of Jane's bridesmaids. He sounded weird, hesitant. He said, "Hey man, I need to tell you something and I don't know how to say it." My stomach dropped. He told me he saw something at Jane's bachelorette party the night before. He said he was 100% sure she was sexual with one of the strippers. When I pressed for details, he said handjob in a roundabout way, but he kept repeating he was sure. I asked if he could be mistaken, maybe misheard a text or saw something innocent. He said no, I just know, he said. Her bridesmaid was in on it, he said. That was the one who used him as a proxy to tell me. I hung up and just sat there. My friends were still laughing in the other room. I couldn't move. I didn't scream. I just stared at the wall. I think I said I was tired and they left. That night I didn't sleep. I stayed in bed listening to the doors and Opeth, trying not to lose my mind. Jane was staying at her parents' house that night, so I knew she wasn't coming over. I kept going over the phone call, hoping it was a prank, hoping the guy was wrong, but his voice was too serious. The next morning I called my cousin. She's been friends with Jane since childhood and went to the bachelorette party. I figured she would tell me if something happened. I called 5 times, no answer. Red alarms going off. I kept calling, still nothing. I didn't leave a voicemail. I didn't know what to say. What do you say? Hey, did my fiance give a stripper a handjob? I needed to hear her voice to hear her say it was nothing, but the silence said everything. I spent the next 2 days at my parents' place, surrounded by people I could trust. My head was spinning. I kept thinking about all the times Jane talked about our future, about the house we were going to buy, about the kids. She was so excited about the wedding. She'd been putting deposits on everything: venue, caterer, photographer. I gave her my credit card for the deposits because I had better rewards. She said she'd handle it. I didn't think twice. Now I was wondering what else she was handling. I finally got a hold of my cousin on the 3rd day. She sounded weird. She said she didn't see anything, but she also said she left early. Something about a girls' night thing. She didn't want to be around the strippers. I asked if she heard anything from the bridesmaids. She got really quiet. She said, "Mike, I think you need to talk to Jane." That was all she said. I knew then it was real. I called Jane. She picked up on the first ring, all cheerful. "Hey baby, how was your—" I didn't get a chance to finish my sentence. She kept talking, asking about my night, telling me about some drama with her mom. I cut her off. "Jane, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." Silence, then a flat "okay." I told her what the bridesmaid's husband told me. I didn't sugarcoat it. I said, "I was told you gave a handjob to a stripper at your bachelorette party. I need to know if that's true." She started crying immediately, not the loud, angry kind. The quiet, scared kind. She said, "It's not what you think." I was drunk. He was really aggressive. I didn't know what to do. I said, "So it happened." She didn't deny it. She just kept saying sorry over and over. I hung up. I couldn't listen anymore. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just sat on my parents' couch and stared at the wall for an hour. My mom came in and asked what was wrong. I told her the wedding was off. She didn't ask for details. She just sat next to me. The next day I drove to Jane's parents' house. She was there. Her mom answered the door looking worried. Jane came out. We sat on the porch. She told me the whole story. The stripper was a guy they hired from a service. He was doing a private dance for her and she said he kept pressuring her. She said she felt obligated, that it lasted maybe 30 seconds. She said she was ashamed and planned to never tell me because it meant nothing. But it meant everything to me. The rule was clear. I told her we were done. She begged. She said she'd do anything. I said, "You should have thought about that before you touched someone else." She moved out of her apartment a week later. I had to cancel all the wedding deposits. I still had to pay some cancellation fees because the contracts were in my name. That credit card, I checked the statements. She'd been putting deposits on it for months. $3,000 for the venue, $1,200 for the photographer, $800 for the caterer, all on my card. She said she'd pay me back after we got married, but there was no wedding anymore. We haven't spoken in 2 months. My cousin still talks to her but says she's devastated. I don't care. I lost 3 years of my life and a chunk of my savings. I learned that no matter how solid you think someone is, they can still break everything in one night. That story still stings when I think about it. But it made me more aware of how people can twist things, like what happened to my sister and her ex. That's a whole different kind of messed up. I'm a 26-year-old woman and my little sister is 24. She's been dating this guy since they were both 17, high school sweethearts. They did long distance through college and somehow made it work. He was always around our family. I considered him a brother. 7 years of holidays, birthdays, barbecues. He was kind, protective, supportive. They had the same humor, same hobbies, same everything. I honestly thought they'd be together forever. Then one night my sister and her ex sat me and my partner down. She did all the talking. He just sat there looking like someone kicked his dog. My sister said they were broken up. She said she felt like she missed out on other opportunities because he was her only partner ever. She's pansexual and wanted to date women and non-binary folks. She said maybe they'd find their way back to each other later. She said they'd continue living together in the same apartment. She said nothing would really change besides stopping romantic gestures. They'd be roommates and friends. I looked at him, he wouldn't meet my eyes. When I asked him directly, he just nodded and said he was fine with the decision. But when my sister went to the bathroom, I asked again. He said, I didn't have a choice. She told me we were done, no conversation, just this is happening. He said he felt like he pushed her away by being too needy during his mental health issues. He said he loved her and hoped she'd come back. I wanted to hug him. But my sister came back and the subject changed. A few weeks later, my sister showed up at my door crying. She said her ex had a photo of me on his phone. She said it was inappropriate. I asked what photo. She wouldn't show me. She just said it was obviously me and that he had it hidden. I asked where she found it. She admitted she went through his phone while he was sleeping. She said she confronted him and he said it was from a beach trip years ago, that he had it because he considered me family, but she didn't believe him. She said she ended things for real this time, no chance of getting back together. I asked to see the photo. She refused. She said it would make me uncomfortable. I told my partner about it. He got quiet. He asked why would she break up with him over a photo of you if she was already ending things to explore. Good point. I texted her ex. He called me sounding broken. He said, I never looked at you that way, I swear. It was just a candid shot from when we all went to the lake. She asked me to delete it. I did, but she already ended things. She used it as a reason to make it permanent. He said he thought she was looking for a way to make herself the victim. I believed him. I called my sister and told her I was on his side. She screamed at me, said I was betraying her. I said, you ended a 7-year relationship because you wanted to date other people. That's one thing, but dragging me into it as an excuse, that's not fair to him or to me. She hung up. We haven't spoken in a month. She moved out of the apartment and is dating a woman she met on an app. Her ex is in therapy. I still talk to him. He's a good guy. My sister made her choice, but she didn't have to destroy someone's dignity in the process. Workplace stories can be just as messy. I learned that the hard way. I've been at my office for 9 years. I keep my personal life separate. No pictures on the desk, no family stories at lunch. Not because I'm ashamed, I just like having boundaries. I have twin daughters, a husband, a dog, a nice house. I play softball and kayak, but none of my coworkers knew any of that. They talked about their spouses and kids all the time. I just nodded and redirected. Then Melinda was hired. She became the office snoop. She'd worm her way into everyone's business, then use the information later. I never gave her anything. She kept poking. I stayed quiet. One Friday, she came in looking smug. At lunch, she announced to everyone that I was married, had twin daughters, a dog, a house, and that I played softball and kayaked. She even found my Facebook profile. I used a shortened version of my name and my married name. She must have used a people search site. I reported her to HR for invasion of privacy. HR said I should be more open. I said it's not a requirement to share personal info. They said it creates a hostile work environment when I'm so secretive. I said, Melinda stalked me online and shared my private information without my consent. That's the hostile part. HR took her side. Melinda got a warning. I got a talking to about being a team player. 2 months later, Melinda tried the same thing with another coworker. That guy had cancer and didn't want anyone to know. Melinda found out from a doctor's appointment slip. She told the whole office. The guy quit, then HR finally fired her, but by then the damage was done. My trust in that workplace was gone. Now I keep my head down and do my job. I don't share anything. I learned that the second you let people in, they can use it against you. Better to be the enigma. I thought I was overreacting when my boss first texted me. The message came in on a Tuesday afternoon. Hey, can you host my wife, toddler, and dog for a week in January? If not, I'll ask the company to pay for a hotel. I stared at my phone for a solid minute. Bob was the CEO's golden boy. He'd been promoted 3 times in 4 years while I got nothing. Not a raise, not a title change, nothing. And now he wanted me to house his entire family. I work in a mid-sized company. Bob used to be under me in the hierarchy. Then he had a kid, his wife became a SAHM, and the CEO, let's call him Dick, started treating Bob like a saint. Bob showed up late, missed meetings, slept at his desk, didn't matter. Dick promoted him anyway. Meanwhile, I had a baby too, and Dick silently demoted me. Same workload, less pay, less respect. I was the office mom. Bob was the office hero. So when Bob texted me that request, I didn't even know how to respond. I typed out absolutely not about 10 times, then deleted it each time. I called my husband. He said, tell him no, that's insane. I said, but Bob outranks me now. He might push back. My husband said, he can push back all he wants. You don't owe him your home. I didn't respond to the text. Instead, I waited until the next day and went straight to Dick's office. I told him Bob asked me to host his family. Dick shrugged and said, he's a family man. I thought you'd be happy to help. I said, I'm a family man too. I have a husband and a baby. My house isn't a hotel. Dick said, it's just 1 week. Be a team player. I walked out of his office shaking. I went to HR. The HR lady Linda sighed when I explained. She said, Bob is a valued employee. Maybe you should reconsider. I said, I'm a valued employee too. I've been here 9 years. I've never missed a deadline. I've never asked for special treatment. Why does Bob get everything? Linda didn't have an answer. She just said Bob's request was unusual but not against policy. I said, so I have to let a stranger and her toddler and her dog live in my house for a week. Linda said, he's not a stranger, he's your coworker. I said, I barely know him, he's never been to my house, I've never even had lunch with him. She shrugged. I went back to my desk and wrote an email to Bob. I kept it professional. I'm not able to host your family, I hope you find suitable accommodations. Bob replied within 5 minutes. Disappointed, Dick said you'd be flexible, guess I was wrong. That was it, no apology, no understanding. A week later I found out Bob had asked Dick to move my project to his team. Dick agreed, I was silently reassigned to a lower priority account. No warning, no explanation. I went to Dick and asked why. He said, Bob needs the visibility. You're good at your job, but you're not a team player, Bob is, so he gets the big projects. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I went home and updated my resume. I'm still at the company, but I'm looking. I talk to no one. I eat lunch at my desk. I keep my head down. Bob got his hotel paid for by the company. I got demoted for saying no. That's the corporate world. You're either a family man or you're nothing. Another time I got thrown into someone else's drama without asking for it. I was 17 working at a coffee shop after school. My girlfriend, let's call her Sam, was my age. Her older sister was 24 and engaged to a nice guy. They were supposed to get married in July. I'd met her sister maybe 4 times. She was always nice to me, but we weren't close. One busy Saturday afternoon, I was behind the counter making lattes. My coworker nudged me and pointed to a booth by the window. Look at those two, they need a room. I looked. It was Sam's sister, full-on making out with a guy who was definitely not her fiance. They were all over each other, hands in hair, lips locked, the whole thing. I froze. I didn't know what to do, so I just kept working, hoping they'd leave. They did leave after about 15 minutes. I went to clean the tables. I thought I was safe. Then her sister came back in. She must have forgotten something. She saw me. Her face went white. She grabbed my arm and begged, please don't tell Sam, you didn't see anything, okay? I said, I didn't see anything. She didn't believe me. She said, we have to talk. Then she left. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Sam texted, what's going on with you and my sister? I said I didn't know. She kept pushing. She said her sister was crying. She said I should come over. I texted back, my parents won't let me leave. Sam said, we'll drive to you, sneak out. I said no. I was freaking out. I called my dad and told him everything. He said, don't meet them, don't lie, but don't throw yourself into the fire either. I took his advice. I texted Sam, your sister needs to tell you what she did. It's not my place. I don't want to be in the middle. Sam didn't reply. 2 hours later, she showed up at my house with her sister. My parents answered the door. They looked serious. Sam's sister was crying. My parents let them in. We all sat in the living room. Sam's sister admitted everything. She said she'd been seeing this guy for a few months. She said she wasn't ready to get married. She said she was scared to break it off with her fiance. She begged me to keep quiet. Sam looked at me with tears in her eyes. She said, please don't tell anyone. She'll call off the wedding herself. Just give her time. I agreed. I didn't want to ruin lives. But a week later, the fiancé found out anyway. Someone else saw them at a bar. He confronted Sam's sister. She broke down and told him everything. The wedding was called off. The fiancé was devastated. He kept texting me, asking if I knew. I said I was just a barista. I didn't want to be involved. Sam and I broke up a month later. She said I should have told her sooner. I said, your sister asked me to keep quiet. I was trying to respect her wishes. Sam said, you should have respected me more. We were 17, we didn't know how to handle anything. Looking back, I should have told the fiancé the same night, but I was a kid, I was scared. I still think about it sometimes. That guy deserved to know before he walked down the aisle, but I was just a coffee shop worker caught in the middle. Sometimes you do the wrong thing for the right reasons, and it still messes everything up. That wasn't the last time I got dragged into someone else's mess. A few years later, I thought I had finally found the one. Her name was Jane. We'd been together for 3 years, engaged for 6 months. I thought we were solid. We had the same rules, no sex outside the relationship, no romantic kissing, no gray areas. It was all black and white. I trusted her completely. Then one night my phone rang. I was at home playing WoW Classic with some friends, having my own low-key bachelor party. No strippers, no clubs, just pizza, beer, and leveling up. It was a great night. Then I saw the caller ID. It was Mark, one of the bridesmaids' husbands. I barely knew him. He said he needed to talk. I stepped into the kitchen. His voice was tight. I saw something at Jane's bachelorette party, something you need to know. My stomach dropped. He said Jane had been with a stripper, not just dancing, sexual. He said it in a roundabout way, but I knew what he meant. Handjob. I asked if he could be mistaken. He said no, he was 100% sure. He said his wife, the bridesmaid, had told him. She was feeling guilty and used him as a proxy, I think. She didn't want Jane to come after her when I found out. I hung up and stood in the kitchen, staring at the wall. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just went numb. My friends were still in the living room, laughing. I told them I wasn't feeling well and asked them to leave early. They looked confused but went. I sat on the couch for hours, listening to the doors and Opeth, trying not to lose my mind. Jane wasn't living with me. She was staying at her parents' place that weekend. I texted her that I was tired and would talk tomorrow. She said okay. I didn't sleep. I just lay in bed, replaying every conversation, every moment, trying to find a crack in her story. I couldn't. She had never given me a reason to doubt her, but now this. I called my cousin the next morning. She had been at the party. She'd known Jane since childhood. I called 5 times, no answer. Red alarms went off. I called Mark again. He repeated everything. Same details, same certainty. He said the stripper was a guy Jane had hired specifically. He said the bridesmaids saw it happen. I asked if anyone else knew. He said no, just him and his wife. I asked why he was telling me. He said his wife couldn't live with the guilt. I drove to my parents' house. I needed to get away from my own place, from the ring I'd bought, from the wedding binder on the coffee table. My mom took one look at me and knew something was wrong. I told her everything. She said, wait until you talk to your cousin, don't jump to conclusions. I waited 3 more hours. Finally, my cousin called back. Her voice was shaky. She said, I need to tell you something, but I'm scared of what it'll do to you. I said, just tell me. She told me it was true. She saw Jane go into the bathroom with the stripper. They were in there for about 10 minutes. When they came out, Jane's makeup was smudged. The stripper looked pleased. My cousin said she confronted Jane the next day. Jane denied everything, said they were just talking, but my cousin knew. I hung up and sat on my parents' back porch for an hour. The sun went down. I didn't move. My dad came out and sat next to me. He said, you have to decide what you can live with. I said, I can't live with a liar. I broke up with Jane the next day. I drove to her parents' house. She answered the door looking confused. I said, I know about the stripper. Her face went white. She started crying and saying it was a mistake. She was drunk. It didn't mean anything. I said, we had a rule. You broke it. We're done. She begged. She called me names. She said I was being unfair. I left. I didn't look back, but I still think about it. How one phone call from a guy I barely knew destroyed everything. And how Jane never even told me herself. She made me find out from a stranger. At least that was a clear betrayal. Sometimes the betrayal is so subtle you don't even see it coming until it's too late. That's what happened with my sister and her ex-boyfriend. I'm 26. My little sister is 24. She and her boyfriend, let's call him Ryan, had been together since they were both 17, high school sweethearts. They did long distance through college, survived all the drama, and came out the other side as best friends. I loved Ryan like a brother. He was kind, protective, and patient. He had his own mental health struggles, but he always showed up for my sister. They were the couple everyone rooted for. A few days ago, my sister and Ryan sat me and my partner down at their apartment. They told us they had broken up. My sister did all the talking. She said she felt like she had missed out on other experiences. She's pansexual and she wanted to try dating women and non-binary people. She kept saying maybe her and Ryan could find their way back to each other one day. She said nothing really would change. They'd still live together, still hang out with us, just stop the romantic stuff. They'd be roommates and friends. I looked at Ryan. He was devastated. His eyes were red. He didn't say a word. When my sister left to go to the bathroom, I asked him point blank, "Is this what you want?" He shook his head. She just told me we were done. No conversation, no compromise. She says she needs to explore. I don't have a choice. I said, you could move out. You could say no to this roommate thing. He said, I love her. I don't want to lose her completely. Even this is better than nothing. I felt sick. I love my sister, but she was being selfish. She wanted to keep him on the hook while she went out and slept with other people. She wanted the security of him at home while she chased fantasies, and Ryan was too broken to see it. Over the next week, I watched my sister post stories about going out with new people, tagging bars and clubs. Ryan stayed home. He texted me once. She came home at 3 a.m. smelling like perfume, not her perfume. I don't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I was on his side, but she was my sister. Then I found out something that made it even worse. My partner told me that my sister had a folder on her phone of photos of me, not normal sister photos, creepy ones, sleeping, changing at the beach. She had zoomed in on my body. My partner saw it when my sister handed her phone to show a picture of our dog. A thumbnail popped up. It was me half-dressed in my own bedroom. I confronted my sister. She broke down. She said she had a crush on me. She said she'd been obsessed with me for years. She said that's why she pushed Ryan away. She couldn't be with him while she was thinking about me. I was disgusted. I told her she needed help. She said she already talked to a therapist. I said she needed to move out and let Ryan go. She did. She moved into a friend's place. Ryan stayed in the apartment. He called me crying, asking if I knew about the photos. I said I did. He said he'd found them months ago but didn't know how to tell me. He said he confronted my sister and she promised to delete them. She didn't. Now I'm stuck in the middle. I feel sorry for Ryan. He wasted 7 years on someone who was obsessed with her own sister. And I feel violated. How do you recover from something like that? I keep my distance now. I don't talk to my sister much. She's in therapy, but I don't trust her. And Ryan, I still see him. We grab coffee sometimes. He's trying to rebuild. He deserves better. We both do. Funny how you can live your whole life thinking you know someone and then one day you realize you never knew them at all. That's the worst part. Not the cheating, not the betrayal. It's the feeling that everything you believed was a lie. I thought I'd seen it all, but then there was work. You know how some people say you should be an open book at the office? I never bought that. I've worked at the same place for 9 years. 9 years of climbing the ladder, keeping my head down and refusing to mix my home life with my professional one. It wasn't that I was ashamed. I have a husband, twin daughters, a dog, a nice house. I play softball, I kayak, I go mountain climbing sometimes. I'm on Facebook under a shortened version of my name, Ali instead of Alexandra with my married name. Nothing crazy, but I believe in compartmentalization. Work is work. Home is home, the two don't need to meet. My coworkers never understood it. They'd ask about my weekend and I'd say, oh, it was good, nothing special. They'd press for details about kids or a partner and I'd just redirect. What about you? How was your son's soccer game? I made friends at that office, real friends, people I genuinely cared about, but we talked about movies, books, office gossip, not my personal life. It worked fine for 8 years. Then Melinda got hired. She came in about a year ago, all smiles and curiosity. She took it upon herself to get close to everyone. At first I thought she was just friendly, but I started noticing patterns. She'd ask leading questions, remember tiny details, slot them away. She was building a dossier on every single person in our department. I never gave her anything. I'd deflect with a joke or a question about her weekend. She'd smile, but I could tell I was a puzzle she hadn't solved. Last Friday, she walked into the office looking like the cat who ate the canary. I should have known something was up. At lunch, she announced to the whole break room that I was married with 2 daughters, a dog, and a nice house. She listed my hobbies. She said she found my Facebook. She couldn't see my posts, but some of my photos were shared publicly through friends' pages. She'd pieced it together using white pages or something. I don't know how she did it, but the look on her face, she was proud. The room went quiet. Everyone turned to me. I didn't scream. I just said, "That's correct. I don't discuss my personal life at work. That's my choice." Melinda laughed. "Why would you hide that? It's not like you're a serial killer." I didn't answer. I finished my lunch and walked straight to HR. I filed a complaint about hostile workplace behavior and invasion of privacy. HR told me they'd talk to her. They did. Melinda denied doing anything wrong, said she was just being friendly and sharing information. She got a verbal warning, but the damage was done. My coworkers started looking at me differently. Some were offended that I'd kept them at arm's length for years. They said I made them feel untrustworthy. Others took Melinda's side, saying I was being dramatic. A few came to me privately and said they understood, that they wished they'd been as careful as me. They had their own stories, people who shared too much and got burned. One guy, Hank, had mentioned his wife was sick. The next year when he needed time off for a family emergency, our old boss used it against him, said he was unreliable. Another woman, Lucy, opened up about her divorce and then got passed over for a promotion because management thought she was emotionally unstable. I'd seen it happen, that's why I built my walls. The following week, my boss pulled me into his office. He said he'd heard about the complaint. He said I should consider being more open with the team, that it builds trust. I told him trust is earned, not forced. He didn't like that. He said I was creating division. I said Melinda created division when she stalked my personal life and broadcast it without my consent. He let it go, but I could tell I'd lost some standing. Melinda got promoted 6 months later. She's now in a position where she oversees some of my work. I'm still at the same level, still private, still fine. But I watch my back now. I log out of everything before I leave my desk. I changed my Facebook settings to friends only and untagged myself from anything that might be public. My coworkers still ask questions sometimes. I still deflect. And every time I see Melinda walk by with that smug little smile, I remind myself I was right to protect my life. The office isn't family. It's a place where people trade your secrets for leverage. I learned that lesson the hard way. I thought I'd seen it all at work, but then my boss asked me to host his entire family for a week. Let me back up. I work for a company where the CEO, let's call him Dick because he is one, has favorites, and the golden boy is Bob. Bob and his wife had a kid. She became a stay-at-home mom, and Dick found that so admirable he promoted Bob on the spot. Didn't matter that Bob started showing up later and later, missing more work, and when he was in the office he was often sleeping. I was his supervisor at the time, but I let it go. I focused on my own team. Then Bob and his family moved across the country for a family emergency. Another promotion. Then another. Within 2 years, Bob went from being under me to outranking me. Meanwhile, I got silently demoted for having the audacity to have a baby. My work didn't change. My numbers were fine, but Dick saw my maternity leave as a betrayal. No raise in 4 years, no acknowledgement. Just passive-aggressive comments about how family women can't handle pressure. So imagine my surprise when Bob texts me out of the blue. I hadn't heard from him in months. The message said, "Hey, I need you to host my wife, toddler, and dog for a week in January. If that doesn't work, I'll ask the company to pay for my accommodations." Gobsmacked, utterly gobsmacked. My dude, I haven't gotten a raise in 4 years. You just got promoted 3 times for being a dad. And now you want me to house your family? For free? I didn't even respond. I took an aspirin and went to my meeting with Dick where he brought it up before I could even sit down. Dick said, "Bob tells me you're refusing to help him out. That's not very team-oriented." I said, "I didn't refuse. I didn't even respond. I'm not a hotel." He laughed like I was joking. Then he said, "Come on, it's just a week. His wife needs a place to stay while he's on the road for that big project." I said, "Why can't the company pay for a hotel? You're paying for his travel anyway." Dick's face went tight. "That's not the point. The point is we look out for each other here. We're a family." I hate that word. The second a workplace calls itself a family, my guard goes up. Because in real families, you don't silently demote someone for having a baby. You don't promote the guy who sleeps at his desk. And you sure as hell don't ask a coworker to host your toddler and dog for a week. I told Dick I'd think about it. I needed time. I went back to my desk and started updating my resume. I've been here too long. My normal meter is broken. The next day, Bob's wife emailed me directly. She introduced herself, said Bob had mentioned I might be able to help, and asked if we could set up a call to discuss logistics. Logistics, like I was a rental property. I didn't reply. A week later, Dick called me into his office again. He said Bob had complained to HR that I was being uncooperative and creating a hostile work environment. Can you believe that? The golden boy who wants me to host his family is saying I'm hostile. HR scheduled a mediation meeting. I sat across from Bob, his wife on a video call, and two HR reps. Bob started by saying he didn't understand why I was being so difficult. He said he thought we were friends. I reminded him we hadn't spoken in a year. He said he was just trying to save the company money by using existing resources. I said I wasn't a resource. I was a person with a family of my own. His wife piped up and said she could help with my kids while she stayed. I laughed, actually laughed. I said, "You want to watch my twins while I'm at work? You'd be a stranger in my home with my children." She looked offended. Bob got red. The HR reps looked uncomfortable. One of them finally said, "This seems like a communication breakdown. Maybe we can find a compromise." I said, "Sure, I'll host them for one night, but the company pays for their hotel for the other 6 and I get a written apology from Bob in compensation for my inconvenience." Bob said no. He said it was all or nothing. I said fine, then nothing. I got up and walked out. That afternoon, Dick sent an email to the whole department praising Bob for his dedication and mentioning that some team members were not pulling their weight. No names, but everyone knew. The whispers started, people took sides, some thought I was being petty, others sent me private messages saying they'd never let a coworker stay with them either. I didn't back down. I started documenting everything. Emails, text messages, meeting notes. I talked to a lawyer. She said I had a case for hostile work environment and retaliation. I haven't filed yet, but I have the papers ready. Bob's family stayed at a hotel. The company paid for it. He hasn't spoken to me since. And Dick, he transferred one of my best projects to Bob last week. Said it was a better fit. I'm still here, still looking. But I've learned something. The people who call you family are usually the ones who want something from you. And once you stop giving, you're no longer family at all. I'm still processing that one. But the next story, that one happened when I was just a kid. 17 years old, working at a coffee shop, trying to save up for a car. I never expected to see what I saw. I was working the register during the afternoon rush. My coworker nudged me and pointed to a couple in the corner booth. "Dude, they need a room," she whispered. They were full-on making out, hands everywhere in a public coffee shop. I just rolled my eyes and kept taking orders. But then I got a better look at the girl. It was my girlfriend's sister. She was supposed to get married in July. And the guy she was all over was not her fiance. I froze. I didn't know what to do. I just kept working, hoping she wouldn't see me. After they left, I went to clean their table. That's when she came back in. She forgot her phone. She saw me and her face went white. She grabbed my arm and begged me, "Please tell me you didn't see anything." I said, "I didn't see anything." But she knew I was lying. She said, "We're not done. We have to talk." Then she left. I went home shaking. An hour later, my girlfriend texted me, "What's going on with you and my sister? She's freaking out. Come over." I told her I couldn't. My parents wouldn't let me leave. She said they'd drive to my house if I snuck out. I refused. I told her, "Your sister needs to tell you what happened. I'm not getting in the middle." That night, the sister called me. She was crying, apologizing, begging me not to say anything. She said she'd been feeling trapped in the engagement. She said her fiancé was controlling and she needed an escape. I told her she should break up with him, not cheat on him. She said she would, but she needed time. I didn't buy it. I told my girlfriend everything the next day. My girlfriend didn't believe me at first. She said her sister would never do that. Then her sister's fiancé found out someone else saw them too. The wedding got called off. The sister blamed me. She said I ruined her life, but she ruined her own life. She's the one who made out with a stranger in a coffee shop. I just happened to be working that day. My girlfriend and I broke up a month later. She said I should have kept it to myself. She said I shouldn't have told her. I said she deserved to know the truth. We didn't agree. I still think about it sometimes. I'm 23 now, working a different job, but I'll never forget that afternoon. The way she looked at me when she realized I saw her. The way she begged, the way she tried to turn it around on me. Some secrets aren't yours to keep, and some people aren't who you think they are. That's the hardest lesson, not that people lie, but that you believed them in the first place. That experience in the coffee shop changed how I saw loyalty. I thought I knew what it meant to protect someone. But the next situation, it tested everything I thought I knew about love and boundaries. My little sister Sam had been dating her boyfriend Jake since they were 17, high school sweethearts. They did long distance through college and somehow made it work. I watched them grow up together. Jake was at every family dinner, every holiday, every birthday. He was part of the furniture. Kind, quiet, protective. He had some mental health stuff he dealt with, but he was always good to her. And she loved him, I thought. A few days ago, they sat me and my partner down at their kitchen table. Sam did all the talking. Jake sat there with his hands folded, staring at the table. She said they were breaking up. She said she felt like she'd missed out because he was her only partner. She's pansexual and wanted to date women and non-binary people. She kept saying maybe they'd find their way back to each other someday. Maybe she just needed experience. They planned to keep living together in the same apartment. They wanted to keep hanging out as a group of 4. She said nothing would really change except romantic gestures. I kept looking at Jake. He looked destroyed. When I asked him directly, all he said was, "Yeah, we're happy with this." But his voice was flat, dead. When Sam went to the bathroom, I asked him again. He said, "I didn't really have a choice. She just told me we were done, no conversation. I feel like I pushed her away somehow, but I don't know how." I hugged him, he cried, I mean really cried. 7 years and she just decided he wasn't enough, I felt sick. A week later, Sam called me excited. She'd been on a date with a woman and it went great. She asked if I wanted to see a picture. I said sure. She sent a selfie of her and the woman at a bar. I looked at it for a long moment. The woman looked familiar. Then it hit me. That was the same woman from a photo I'd seen on Jake's phone months ago. He'd shown me a picture of a friend he'd reconnected with. A friend named Alex, same face, same smile. I didn't say anything to Sam. I called Jake instead. I asked if he knew who his ex was dating. He said no. I told him. He went quiet. Then he said, "That's my friend Alex. We've been talking. She knows about the breakup. She knew Sam was my ex. I can't believe this." I told him he needed to warn Sam. He said he didn't want to get involved anymore. He was trying to move on. I sat on it for 2 days. Then I called Sam and told her everything. She screamed at me. She said I was lying, that I was taking Jake's side, that I was trying to ruin her happiness. I told her to ask Alex about Jake. She refused. A week later, Sam called me crying. She found out Alex had been talking to Jake the whole time. They'd been texting. Alex admitted she knew Sam was Jake's ex. Sam felt betrayed. She said I should have told her sooner. I said I did tell her and she yelled at me. She's still dating Alex. She said it's complicated. Jake stopped responding to my texts. I think he's hurt that I told her, but I couldn't keep watching her walk into something blind. I don't know who was wrong. I just know I lost my sister and I lost a brother, and I'm stuck in the middle. That situation with my sister really messed with my head. I started wondering if I was the one who couldn't see things clearly, so I doubled down at work. I kept my head down. I didn't talk about my personal life. I thought that was the safe move, but that didn't work either. I've worked in the same office for 9 years, 9 years. I started at the bottom and worked my way up. I'm not a gossip and I don't mix work and home. I'm married, I have twin daughters, I play softball, I kayak, I climb mountains sometimes. My coworkers didn't know any of that, not one detail, and I liked it that way. Then Melinda joined the team. She took a few weeks to buddy up to everyone. Then I realized what she was doing. She's an office snoop. She collects information, personal stuff. The kind you can use. She never got anything out of me. I'm a vault. Last Friday, she waltzed in looking smug. At lunch, she announced to everyone that I'm married with 2 daughters, a dog, and a nice house. She listed my hobbies. She said she found me on Facebook. I use a shortened version of my name and my married name, so she must have used white pages. I didn't react. I just said, okay. Then I went to HR. The HR rep looked at me like I was being dramatic. She said, so she found out you have a family? That's not a violation. I said, she deliberately invaded my privacy. She spent weeks trying to dig up personal information on everyone. That's hostile. The HR rep said she'd talked to Melinda. She did. Melinda cried and said she thought we were friends. She said she was just trying to connect. I told her we're coworkers. That's the connection. Now half the office thinks I'm cold. The other half avoids me because they're afraid I'll report them for asking questions. I'm the office enigma and I'm fine with that, but it's lonely. And it made me realize that sometimes, even when you do everything right, people will still find a way to cross your boundaries. You just have to hold the line every single time. But holding the line isn't always that simple. Sometimes the line gets erased before you even know it's gone. I never thought my bachelor party weekend would end with me staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., listening to Opeth and wondering if my fiance had given a stripper a handjob. But here we are. My fiance, I'll call her Jane, and I had been together for 4 years. We got engaged 6 months ago. The wedding was set for October. We had clear boundaries from the start, no sex or romantic kissing outside the relationship. Deal breaker, non-negotiable, she agreed. Her bachelorette party was last Saturday. She went with her bridesmaids to a club in the city. I threw a small thing at home with my friends. We played WoW Classic, ordered pizza, had a good time. I texted Jane around midnight. She said she was having fun and would crash at her parents' house. I went to bed happy. The next morning, I woke up to a missed call from a number I didn't recognize. It was one of the bridesmaids' husbands. I'll call him Mark. We weren't close, but I knew him from a few group dinners. I called back. He said, "Hey man, I need to tell you something. I saw something at the bachelorette party that you need to know about." My stomach dropped. He told me he'd been at the same club with his own friends. He saw Jane and the bridesmaids at a table with a male stripper. He said at one point Jane and the stripper disappeared to a corner. He saw her hand moving in a way that made him certain she was giving him a handjob. He said he was 100% sure. I asked if he could be mistaken. Maybe it was dark, maybe he misinterpreted. He said, "No, I watched for a full minute. I know what I saw." I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat on my couch and didn't move for an hour. My cousin, who had also been at the party, was a close friend of Jane's. I waited until noon the next day to call her. She didn't pick up the first 5 times. I kept calling. Finally, she answered. Her voice was shaky. I said, "Did something happen at the bachelorette party with a stripper?" She said, "I don't know what you're talking about." I said, "Mark saw Jane giving a stripper a handjob. Did you see anything?" Long pause. Then she said, "I didn't see that, but I did see Jane go to the bathroom with him for a while. I thought it was weird. I didn't say anything." I asked if she'd lie for Jane. She said no, but I could hear it in her voice. She knew more than she was saying. I confronted Jane the next day at her parents' house. I showed up unannounced. She looked surprised, then nervous. I said, "I know about the stripper." She went pale. What are you talking about? I told her exactly what Mark said. She started crying. She said it was a misunderstanding. She said he was just giving her a lap dance and her hand accidentally touched him. She said she was drunk and didn't even remember it clearly. I said, you don't accidentally give a handjob. She sobbed. She swore on her mother's life that nothing happened. She said Mark was a liar, that he had a grudge against her because his wife and her had a falling out months ago. I didn't know what to believe. I called Mark again. He said, I have no reason to lie. I saw what I saw. If you want, I can show you the video. Video? He had a video. He sent it. It was dark, grainy, but there was Jane pressed against a wall, the stripper in front of her. Her hand was moving fast. The stripper's head was tilted back. I watched it 3 times. Then I threw up. I broke off the engagement that night. I drove to her parents' house. I showed her the video. She stopped crying. She just stared at the floor. She said, I was drunk. I didn't know what I was doing. I said, you knew exactly what you were doing. You just thought you wouldn't get caught. She moved out of our shared apartment the next week. I lost the deposit on the venue. I lost the wedding photographer. I lost $3,000 on a caterer who wouldn't refund. But I didn't lose my dignity. I didn't marry someone who used a bachelor party as a free pass. The bridesmaid who sent Mark to tell me, she stopped talking to Jane. She said she couldn't be friends with someone who would do that. I don't know if that makes me feel better or worse. I still have the video. I deleted it from my phone, but I kept a copy on a USB drive, not to use, not to hurt her. But to remind myself that I wasn't crazy, that I didn't imagine it. That was 6 months ago. I'm still single. I'm not ready to trust anyone, but I learned something. People will show you who they are. You just have to be willing to look. That whole experience with Jane made me paranoid. I started seeing red flags everywhere, even at work, especially at work. I've been at my company for 8 years. I'm a senior project manager. I report directly to the CEO, a man I'll call Dick. Because he is one, Dick loves his golden boy, Bob. Bob started here 3 years ago as a mid-level analyst. He got promoted because he became a father, not because he was good at his job, because Dick thinks family men are virtuous. Bob started coming in late, taking naps at his desk, missing deadlines. Dick gave him another promotion. When Bob's wife had a second baby and they moved across the country, Dick gave him yet another promotion. Bob now outranks me. Meanwhile, I've been here 8 years. I've had 3 performance reviews with exceeds expectations. I haven't gotten a raise in 4 years, and when I had a baby 2 years ago, Dick silently demoted me. He took away my direct reports. He said it was temporary while I adjusted to motherhood. It wasn't temporary. So when Bob texted me 2 weeks ago, I should have known it was going to be bad. His text, hey, my wife and toddler and dog need a place to stay for a week in January while I'm on a business trip. Can they crash at your place? The company might pay for accommodations if that doesn't work. I stared at the text for 5 minutes. My place, my home. My 2-bedroom apartment where I live with my husband and our baby. He wanted me to host his entire family for a week, for free. I didn't answer. I took a screenshot and sent it to my husband. He sent back a dozen laughing emojis. Then he said, please tell me you're not considering this. I was, but I knew I had to respond professionally. I waited a day, then wrote, sorry, Bob, that won't be possible. My place is too small. Maybe the company can book you a hotel. He didn't reply. Instead, I got a meeting request from Dick. Subject, team support and initiative. I knew what it was about. The meeting was yesterday. Dick sat behind his desk looking at me over his reading glasses. He said Bob mentioned you weren't willing to help him out with his family situation. That's not the kind of culture we're building here. We support each other. Family comes first. I said, my family comes first and my home is not a hotel. His face went red. He said, you're being selfish. Bob is one of our top performers. He needs to focus on his work trip, not worry about his wife and kid. You have space. You have a baby. They could play together. I said, I have a baby who doesn't need a toddler and a dog in her space. I'm not doing it. Dick leaned forward. If you're not a team player, maybe we need to reconsider your role here. I didn't flinch. I said, reconsider all you want. I'm not hosting anyone. He let me go. I walked back to my desk shaking. That night, I started applying for jobs. I've had 3 interviews this week. I told my husband I might be fired. He said, good, that place is toxic. You deserve better. I don't know if I'll get another offer, but I know I'd rather be unemployed than let Dick and Bob treat me like a servant. Sometimes the line is clear. You just have to have the guts to stand on the right side of it. And I do. I finally do.